This topic is back in the limelight, guys. The offsides rule. Not the fact that I got a haircut. I got a haircut, by the way, but this isn't what the football world is talking about. The football world again is talking about El Clasico because it happened on Sunday, but as a result of the Clasico or the El Clasico, the offsides rule is back in discussion, and I'm seeing so many brainless takes. I'm seeing people get emotional at the offsides rule. I'm seeing people debate how the offsides rule should be written, what the offsides rule should be, but it's all useless. It's all nonsense. In my opinion, and I really believe this is the only correct opinion, when it comes to a rule like the offsides rule, it has to remain 100% objective. And I'm seeing all these people online on YouTube, on football talk shows, ESPN, Talks, whatever, all those big footballing shows, right? That everyone watches. They're talking about the offsides rule. They're talking about it's too harsh on the attackers. It favors the defenders too much. And I just disagree. I 1000% disagree with those takes because most people that say those statements, most people that argue those points, they're basically arguing for subjectivity, people's opinions to be taken into account for the offsides rule. They are advocating for a subjective offsides rule over an objective offsides rule. And for me, I can't agree with that. When it comes to the offsides rule, it has to remain objective. Now, for people who don't understand what these words mean, objective means it's facts based, straight facts, no opinions. Subjective means there's an opinion involved. It's not fully on the facts. It's open to interpretation, right? Art is subjective. Movies are subjective. Music is subjective. That kind of bullshit, artsy fartsy bullshit. But the offsides rule has to remain objective. It has to remain fully fact-based. And the issue with this, now, I wish it could be different, right? I wish there could be a middle ground, but there is no middle ground. It cannot be fully subjective. It can't be 5% subjective. It can't be 10%, 20%, 50% subjective. It needs to be 100% objective. Now, why? Because the basis of the offside rule is if the attacker is further than the last defender when the ball is played. The rule itself is very strict. The only objective way to judge offsides is you're either 100% offsides or you're either 100% onside. Or sorry, you're either 100% onside or you're just offside. So if you're 1% offside, you are offside. The only way to stay onside is if you are 100% onside. And the reason that remains objective is you cannot be a millimeter over that offside line. You can't. And I agree with that. I agree with that. Because when you introduce and you advocate for the offsides rule to be subjective, right? You're opening yourselves up to way more controversy. You are. I think a lot of people forget pre-VAR, pre-video assistant referee. Bro, everyone was clamoring. Everyone said the offsides rule has to be objective. There has to just be one offsides rule that everyone abides by. Now, with VAR, the past 6 to 8 years, people are now arguing and complaining, oh, it's too harsh. Oh, 1 millimeter, it's ruining the game. It's ruining the spirit of football. No, because before VAR, we were asking for the offsides rule to be fully objective, for it to not be subjective, for it to not favor anyone. And the only way for the offsides rule to be fully objective and not favor anyone, not be open to interpretation, not be open for corruption, to be corrupted. Because let's be honest, if you make the offsides rule subjective, it is always open to corruption. And with criminal institutions like Real Madrid, who scored a hat-trick of offside goals against Bayern in the 2017 quarterfinal of the Champions League. When you have criminal institutions like Juventus, who have a criminal past of money this, gangsters, the mafia running you know what I mean? There are criminal institutions out there. The laws of the game, if they can be objective and not open to interpretation, not open to corruption, need to stay objective. And the offsides rule is one of them. The offsides rule is one of them. And people have forgotten that everyone was clamoring for an objective offsides rule. And the only way for offsides to be objective is if you are the only way to stay onside is if you are 100% offsides. Onside. Why do I keep mixing those up? Oh my gosh. The only way to stay onside is to remain 100% onside, not 99.99% offside, 100%. 100%. That's the only way. And the reason why this stems from El Clasico this weekend is because of that Mbappe goal. The Mbappe volley right outside the box. He was very marginally offside. Like the tip of his toe was offside, which is what ruled out that fantastic goal. And I see Real Madrid fans complaining, it's too harsh. That should have been a goal. Barca's lucky. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry. According to the rule, which I agree with, you're offsides. And that's that. Now, people argue as well. And I just want to actually bring up some examples. I just want to bring up some examples real quick. Here, like these are the situations I'm talking about, right? I think people see a situation like this. This is just from a random Premier League game, right? Where the player who's offside, I believe this is Manchester City. I believe that's Raheem Sterling over there. The player that is offsides here, you could tell it's by like an inch, a couple centimeters, maybe even millimeters in this case. But the decision, as you can see in the top left-hand corner, was no goal. And people see a situation like this and they say, this is ruining the game. They say, it's ruining the game because is there really that much of an advantage? Is there really that much of an advantage for the attacker if they're a millimeter over the onside line? If they are just marginally offsides by millimeters, maybe even centimeters, is that really that much of an advantage? Should there be something incorporated into the rule where if the referee deems it as not being overly advantageous over the defender, should the call remain onside? And that right there, you're introducing subjectivity. That right there, you cannot allow to happen. Because then you already know, even in the VAR era, refereeing conversations, there's probably even been more refereeing conversations and controversies since the addition of VAR, because you're introducing more referees with the VAR booth and everything. There's actually been more controversy. So you're going to open it up in an era of refereeing where there's more referees officiating a game, so there could be more opinions on a certain call. And do you see how it could get messy if you insert subjectivity back into the offsides rule, open to interpretation? Can you see? And I hate when people say, "Oh, it's just a millimeter. It's just a centimeter. It's not overly advantageous to the attacker." Those kinds of scenarios should be waived as onside. And to that I say, absolutely bullshit. Absolutely bullshit. Because what do we say about football? What do we say about football? This is a game of millimeters. This is a game of centimeters. And I go and watch these football shows. I go and watch these YouTubers complain about the offsides rule, saying it needs to change. There more leeway needs to be given to the attackers. But on the same, and they say things like, "Oh, it's just a millimeter. It's just a centimeter. It's not overly advantageous to the attacker." And then those same analysts, YouTubers, spokesmen of the sport, whatever, they will go and say, "Oh, football is a game of inches. It's about precision. It's a game of millimeters, centimeters. The slightest adjustments can affect a game." Blah, 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 blah. So is it a game? If it's a game of millimeters and centimeters, then shouldn't millimeters and centimeters matter in offsides? And to add to this point, you guys, we've all watched football highlights, right? We've all watched football highlights. How many times have you watched goals occur? How many times have you watched players score goals where the ball is a millimeter away from the defender's foot from being deflected, a centimeter away from the defender's kneecap or leg or calf from getting defended away, a millimeter away from the bottom of their cleats? How many times in football do we watch replays? You know which replays I'm talking about, right? The replays from behind the goal showing the ball coming towards the goal. You guys, hundreds of times I've seen defenders be millimeters, centimeters away from the ball, away from getting a block in. So millimeters matter, centimeters matter. And so with the offsides rule, if an attacker is running against the run of play and running towards the goal, trying to get in between, get behind the back line, and a through ball is played to them, and say they are offsides, but by a millimeter, and the defender's tracking back to get a tackle in, that millimeter matters. That millimeter, that centimeter, however much it is, that can be the difference between a block, the difference between the deflection, a difference between a goal or no goal. So again, the offsides rule here, it needs to stay stringent. It needs to stay this strict. It needs to remain objective. You cannot make offsides subjective. You can't. And honestly, I would love if we could just do like a social. I wish we could just do social experiments in football, like just change a rule for a month across all the leagues in the entire world and see what happens. Just be like, all right, we're gonna change this. Let's see what happens. Right? Oh, I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow to this red and blue. I wonder how the paint is gonna change. I wish we could do this because I'd love to see 1 month of Premier League, Bundesliga, La Liga, Champions League games, Serie A games, Ligue 1 games. I'd love to just see 1 month of football where you introduce subjectivity to offsides calls. And you will see chaos occur. You will see people rattled. You will see a whole lot of uproar. You will see controversies, fans getting mad. Then we're having conversations about offsides again. Oh, we actually never mind. We need to go back to it being fully objective. I guarantee you that's what would happen if we could live in an alternate universe where we could do that. I guarantee you that's what would happen. I guarantee it. And so I'll end this video off with when you keep the offsides rule objective as well, that rule on whatever given day, whatever the circumstances of the game, whoever is the ref, whoever the teams are that are playing, if you keep the offsides rule objective, that rule is equal for everyone. That rule cannot be corrupted. Refs cannot be paid off. And that for me is a great rule. There's no way to get around it. That's the rule. That's a great rule. You can't break the rule. That's a solid rule right there. Because it's objective. And because if you are a millimeter offsides, you will be called offsides. If you are a millimeter offsides on a through ball and you score the goal, it's no goal. And rightfully so. Rightfully so, because as this is a game of inches, millimeters, centimeters, micrometers, even maybe at some time. Maybe micrometers is too extreme, but you know what I mean. This is a game of fine margins. And this is a game where we know teams will try to corrupt referees. Teams will try to pay off referees. We've had scandals not just in lower tier football, in the big leagues, in Champions League, Premier League, Serie A, La Liga. We know this. So why would we make such an important rule like offsides be a rule that could be corrupted in the VAR era? No. No. So it needs to stay objective. And when it stays objective, it's fair for all teams. Small teams, big teams, medium-sized teams. No one can pay off the refs. If everyone's a millimeter offsides, everyone's a millimeter offsides. Just because Real Madrid is a millimeter offsides doesn't mean their goal will stand. If Elche's goal is a millimeter offsides, they will be offsides. If Real Madrid, if Mbappe is a millimeter offsides, he will be offsides. If Bayern, Harry Kane is a millimeter offsides, he will be offsides. That goal will not count. And that goes for every single competition. And it should be like that. It should be objective. It should not be subjective where a referee is like, well, let me go to the VAR booth and think, all right, let me analyze the footage. Okay, he's a centimeter offsides, but the momentum of his body doesn't really look like he is running into that space in a very advantageous way. He's not really running in with too much momentum. So compared to how the defender is moving and the momentum of the defender in comparison to the momentum of the attacker, I think this play is fair. I think this offsides call should actually be on. Do you see how crazy shit can get if you try to do that? So keep it objective. Leave the subjectivity for art. You guys, subjectivity, leave that for the arts. Leave that for movies. Leave that to Picasso, Michelangelo, Mozart. Leave that to Taylor Swift. Leave that to those guys. In football, we should strive to make things objective as much as we can. And I think in the long run, people will be happier. That's controversy. It's been your boy Hokage. I just want to come on and speak about it because every time the offsides debates come up, I get frustrated because a lot of people just speak on emotion. They just think, oh, my team got screwed today. I'm going to go on and cause an uproar and cause a stir and say there's something wrong with the offsides rule just because it didn't benefit me on this day. When on another day, when an opposition team scores a goal and they're a millimeter, 2 millimeters offsides, that same fan will have no issue cheering on the VAR call to call that goal offsides because it favors them. People are jealous. Football fans are jealous. Football fans are fickle. And football fans, most of them, they're retarded. It's been your boy Hokage. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.